Welcome to the third part of the Pivot Tables for Beginners series. If you have reviewed the first two videos in this series, the links are available below in the description. I can say with confidence you are no longer considered a Pivot Tables beginner. The raw data file of these examples is available for you to download so you can practice along. Having said that, let's move on with the presentation. In this section, we will review how we can use multiple copies of the same value field in a pivot area to create different insights of our data. In this extract, we have the project code, the area, the customer name, the project contract amount, the amount billed so far from the project, and how much open balance of collection it remains. Let's create a pivot table. Select anywhere in a data range. At the Home tab, click Insert, select Pivot Table. Confirm that the wizard has picked up all your data by confirming the highlighted range and click OK. Let's create a report by area that shows the total contracts, total amount billed, and total open balances. Let's move the field area to the rows area. Let's move the contract amount to the values, the billed amount to the values, and the open balance amount to the values. Click on each field, select Value Field Settings, and let's format it as accounting. Click OK. Let's repeat for the other fields. We created a pivot that shows details by area. Let's do some analysis with just the contract amount. I'm going to remove the billed and the open balance. Let's bring another copy of the same field into the values area. Let's select the value field. Under Summarize Values By, let's select Count Numbers, which will give us how many projects per area. And let's format the number. We don't want any decimal points. And there you have it. Looking at the report, we have 24 projects in Asia, 16 projects in Europe, 36 projects in the USA. Let's bring another copy of the same field. Let's go to the value field settings. This time, let's do an average. Let's find out what's the average of the contracts in each area. So we're going to do average, select number format, accounting, click OK. Looking at the pivot, the Asia projects on average, the Asia contracts are 10,000, the European contracts are 54,000, the USA contracts are 25,000. Let's bring another copy of the same field. Let's click on the value settings. This time around, let's go to Show value as. Under no calculation, click and select percent of grand total. And this is by area. Let's select the number format. It's percentage, 2 decimals, click OK, and click OK. Looking at the data, Asia contracts at 12.27% of the overall contracts of the company. Europe is 42.24%, and USA 45.49%. By reusing the same field over and over again, we can achieve so many data insights that were not part of our original data extract to begin with. Leaving the same fields at the value area. So now we have a separate view of our data that shows the customers, the total amount of contracts per customer per project, the total number of projects per customer, the average project contract amount, and then the percentage of business that each customer is bringing to the whole company. Let me bring another copy also of the contract amount and click on value field settings. Let's go to show value as. Now this time I'm going to show the amount as a running total by customer name, like we're looking at. Number format, let's call it, let's make it accounting. Click OK. So looking at the report now, the last column has a running total of its contract. When you reach the last project, you see that the total of the last project, the running total at the last project level, is the same with a grand total. Calculated fields is a powerful feature of Microsoft Excel pivot table that enables the user to derive meaningful insights from the data when the information is not immediately available. With calculated fields, you can create new fields that combine existing data elements using mathematical operators, functions, and logical expressions. In this section, we will answer 4 questions pertaining to the product part sales quantity. 3 of them are based on fields that we don't have. Let's create a pivot table. Let's answer the first question, the total quantity sold per item. All we have to do is drag the items, item code and part code to the rows area, and then let's move the quantity to the values area. Click on value field settings. Let's format the field to be a number. We don't want any decimal points, and we do have 1,000 separator. Click OK. Let's rename the field. And there you have it, the total quantity sold by item code. The next question to answer is total sales per item. Looking at our data, we don't have that information immediately available. We do have unit price and unit cost. That's where the calculated fields come into play. At the pivot table analyze, Click on Field Items, Calculated Field. Let's name the field and call it Sales. The formula to calculate the total sales is quantity times unit price. Let's pick up the unit price field times, and then we want the quantity, and click Add. Notice the field appears in your pivotable fields area. So when you click OK, it appears at your values area as a sum total. Let's format the field, rename it to sales, not just sum of sales, and then number format as accounting. Click OK and click OK, and there you have it. The next question to answer is calculate the total cost of our sales. Let's go to the pivot table, Analyze, select Fields, Calculated Field. Let's call this field Cost. The formula to calculate the cost is quantity times unit cost. This is the information that we have available in our dataset. Let's create the formula. We need to calculate the cost, we need the quantity, double click on quantity, times the unit cost, double click on the unit cost, and click Add. The newly created field appears in the pivotable fields, and when you click OK, it appears also in your values area with the title Sum of Cost. Click on that. Value field settings, change the name, and change the format, call it accounting, click OK, and click OK. And there you have the total cost per item. The last field we want to calculate is the net profit. Let's go again at the pivot table, click Calculated Fields. Let's call this field Profit. The formula to calculate the profit is total sales minus total cost. So here are the two fields that we newly created, the sales minus the cost. Add the field. It appears in the pivotable fields area, and click OK. And there you have it. Let's format it, change the name, change the format, accounting, and click OK. And there you have it. We just calculated the net profit for our sales. If you need to modify the formula of a calculated field or delete them, you can do that. Click on Pivot Table Analyze. Let's go to Field Items. Click on Calculated Fields. Under the field name, the down arrow will display all available calculated fields. Pick the field that you would like to change and just go modify the formula. After you edit the formula, click Modify and click OK. The changes appear in the calculations. You may also need to delete certain calculated fields. You would do that again from Pivotable Analyze. Select Field Items, Calculated Fields. At the name, bring up the field that you want to delete and click Delete and click OK. Automatically, the field is removed from the pivot table fields and from the values area. As you can see, with calculated fields, you can create sophisticated formulas that empower you to derive unique insights, answer complex business questions, and make informed decisions based on your customized calculations. By utilizing multiple copies of a pivot table based on the same dataset, we can personalize and tailor a data analysis report to different audiences or stakeholders. Each pivot table can be designed to focus on different aspects or dimensions of the data, allowing us to explore different angles and present information relevant to particular individuals or teams. Let me demonstrate how easy it is to perform such task. At the pivot table Analyze, click on Select Entire Pivot Table. Right-click on the pivot, select Copy, go to the destination, right-click and select Paste. So we have a copy of the pivot. Now let's change this to reflect sales by quarter. Let's bring up the pivot table fields, bring in the quarter, and remove the item and the part code. And here's the analysis by quarter. Let's take another copy using the shortcuts this time. Select the table via Ctrl A. Hit Ctrl A. Ctrl C to copy. Go to the destination, Ctrl V to paste. Let's change this to show sales by region. Bring up the fields, bring the region area into our rows, take out item and part code, and there you have it. Let's make another copy to create another view. Ctrl A to select the pivot, Ctrl C to copy. Let's go to the destination, Ctrl V to paste. Let's change that pivot to show sales by item code. Since we already have the item code in the rows area, let's take out the part code, and there you have the view that shows sales analysis by item. I hope you're seeing the various applications that this is opening up to. All we have to do is just format the report, add some titles, headers, and whatever, and just send it to the appropriate team. Deleting a table is as easy as copying it. All we have to do is select the table, and after we select it, click the delete key. When you have columns of dates in your dataset, Excel's pivot tables can automatically group them into meaningful intervals, such as days, months, quarters, or years. This grouping simplifies the analysis process, making it easier to identify trends and draw insights from your data. Let's consider an example. In our case, we're looking at the XYZ Corp open vendor invoices. We have invoice dates and due dates. Let's create a pivot. At the Home tab, click Insert, select Pivot Table, confirm the range of your table that all your data are selected, and let's construct the pivot. Let's look at the open balances by vendor. Let's move the vendor ID to the rows area and the open balance to the values area. Right-click on the value field and look at the value settings. Let's format it as accounting and rename it to a shorter name, open bal, and click OK. There you go. We're looking at the open balances by vendor. Now, if we bring the due date into the rows area, observe what happens. Automatically, Excel takes the dates and creates groups in different time intervals. So we get the years, the quarters, and the due date, which change to the month names now. Let's move the vendor ID at the bottom, and then we have a view, open balances by year. We can expand the year, and then we're looking within the year, we're looking at a breakdown by quarter what the open balance was. Let's move the years to the columns area. Now we're getting a different view of our information. So we have the years as columns now, and the rows, we have the quarters. So at a glance, you can check for every quarter within each year what the open balances were. Let's move the year to the filters area. Now we're going to filter by a year. And let's move the quarters to the columns area. So now we have the quarters on the top as columns. Now let's collapse the data and let's pick up 2022. And then now you're looking by month within each quarter what the balance was, the open balance was. Let's add a separate view to see the data from a different perspective. Let's move the due date to the columns area. So now we have every month represented in the columns. To the left, you have vendor. Within vendor, you have the quarters. Let's take the quarters out from the rows area and bringing the years into a rows area before the vendor ID. There you have it. We're looking at the report breakdown by year, by month, by vendor, the amount of open balances. In case you need to revert back to the regular date format, all you have to do is right-click on any of the date groups and select the Ungroup option, and all your dates are converted back to the original format. Excel by default creates date groups. We can change this default behavior at the Home tab. Click on File, select Options, select Data, and check Disable Automatic Grouping of Date Time columns in PivotTables, and click OK. If you need to recreate the date groups, right-click on any date at the pivot, select Group, and then click on any grouping you want to create. And there you have it. You're back to groups. You also can create more date groups. Right-click on the date, select Group, and you can select days, quarters, years, and click OK. And now you have the full-blown date grouping as Excel creates when the default settings are set up. Slicers are a very powerful tool in Excel that allow the users to filter and interact with pivot table data in a user-friendly manner. Slicers provide a visual interface that makes it easy for users to filter pivot table data. Users can just simply click on the desired filter option to update the data displayed in the table. Slicers also provide a very clear indication of the current filters applied. Users can easily see which filters are active, which values are included or excluded from the displayed data. We will use the example of the XYZ Project's Performance Report. We're looking at the pivot for this report. Off the bat, you will notice that there are filters already set in the pivot table, but the conditions and criteria, they're not immediately visible, which forces you to open up each field and check what the condition was. This is where slicers come handy. Let me show you how we can create slicers. Click anywhere at the pivot table. At the Home tab, under Pivot Table Analyze, click Insert Slicer. Select the field that you're going to be filtering, and for that field, slicers will be created. Let's pick up the area and the customer name. You can move around the slices, rearrange them on the screen as you like, enlarge them. Each slicer shows the available options for this field. Under area, you see the 3 choices. Under customer name, you see all the customers. You can scroll up and down. When you click on a slicer, you also get a tab on the Home tab that's called Slicer. We can use that tab to format our slicers. Click on the design and you can pick any style you like. Change the colors. If you have a lot of options and you want to display them all at once, you also get the option to change the number of columns in your slicer. So here, let's pick up 3 columns, expand it, and now you have a better view of the options available. Using the slicers is very intuitive. All you have to do, just click on the values and automatically your pivot is filtered with your selection. You can combine filters and choices from multiple slicers. One more thing to notice, that when options do not participate in the results of one of the criteria, they get disabled. If you look at the customer name, the customers that don't participate in the selection of Asia records, they are dimmed. If at any point you need to clear your filters, all you have to do, just click on the funnel and your filter condition is removed. You can select multiple values by choosing the multi-select option, or by hitting the Control key and clicking on the choices, you can also achieve the same result. Slicers offer many ways to exploit your data. This can be particularly useful when analyzing large data sets or when comparing different subsets of data. In summation, slicers offer a very user-friendly and intuitive way to filter your pivot table data. It doesn't require a lot of technical expertise. In this section, we will discuss the Excel feature that is available to us during the pivot table creation. This feature is called Recommended Pivot Tables, and it provides suggestions on pivot table layouts based on the data you have selected. Based on the data analysis, Excel generates a set of recommended pivot tables that it believes will be most relevant to your needs. These recommendations are displayed in a panel with preview thumbnails, allowing you to preview and choose the layout that suits your requirements. The recommended pivot tables suggest different variations of the layout, such as different combinations of row labels, column labels, and value fields. The recommended layouts are designed based on common data analysis scenarios and best practices. The main feature, and above all, the most important benefit, it's time saving. Instead of manually configuring a pivot table from scratch, you can quickly choose one of the recommended layouts, saving you time and effort. Let me show you how this works. We'll use the XYZ Corp Open Vendor Invoice Report. Click anywhere on the data. At the Home tab, click Insert and select Recommended Pivot Tables. Let's see what Excel has to propose. Looking at the choices, we get a pivot by vendor and open balances. That's a possibility. Then we get another pivot by vendor and the total invoice amount by vendor. This is count of invoice numbers per vendor, and this is the sum of invoice number. That's not useful. So let's select the open balance one and click OK. This will get us to the pivot. So from that point on, we can either enhance the pivot, modify it, format the fields, add additional dimensions, and so on and so forth. So that was very good because we didn't have to start from scratch. Let's take a look at another example. This example, we're looking at the annual projects performance. Click anywhere on the table, click Insert Recommended Pivot Tables. Let's take a look at the recommended suggestions. Here we have total contracts of projects by area. This one is total amount billed by area. This is a more comprehensive one. We get by area the open balance, the amount billed, and the total contract amount. That's a good candidate. On this one, we get the count of projects by area. On this one, we get projects financials by customers. On this one, we get count of projects per customer and financials. We get the total contract amounts and the amount billed per customer. Let's select this one and click OK. There you have it. You have the full pivot that we didn't have to start from scratch, and we can either enhance it, format it, add additional fields, and so on and so forth. I hope you see the benefits of always taking a look at the recommended pivot tables, because most likely it will save you time and you don't have to start from scratch. I hope by now you got a sense of how important and useful pivot tables are in order to analyze your data. It saves you so much time, all the manual work you will have to do by entering manual formulas to get summaries. Everything is done in pivots by just dragging fields around. In the next video, we're going to dive deeper in the functionality of pivot tables by presenting you with additional features.